All right. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. We've got a few more people trickling in, but I'll just keep letting them in from the waiting room as they arrive. I want to thank everybody for being here today. I'm looking forward to discussing today's topic. It's one that we struggle with on a daily basis, as I'm sure many people on this call do. So hopefully we'll get you some information that may prove to be helpful. If nothing else, it'll be reassuring that you're not alone in this fight, which can be quite a challenging one at times. So, for anybody who's not familiar with the company, Paragus is the premier IT provider for small to medium-sized businesses in Western and Central Massachusetts and beyond, offering both supplemental and outsourced IT options to fit all of our clients' needs. As a 100% employee-owned company, every member of our team is personally invested in the growth and success of our business, and we don't grow and succeed unless our clients do. We're also committed to infusing fun and excitement into our work and culture and our client relationships. The culture we've developed at Paragus is a big part of why we enjoy working together so much, and I think it's a big part of why clients enjoy working with us as well. So let's talk about why you're here today. Your employees are your biggest cyber risk, and they can be your best defense. I'm excited to spend the next 45 minutes with you discussing one of the most critical and paradoxical aspects of cybersecurity, our people. We have clients, partners, board members, and prospects here, including leaders from IT, HR, finance, and operations. No matter what your role is, the topic touches you because cyber risk isn't just a tech problem, it's about the people at every level of the organization. Let's start with a simple analogy. We all lock our front doors when we leave for home. Of course we do. But if someone leaves a window wide open, that sturdy lock on the door doesn't mean much anymore. In business, we invest heavily in security technology, firewalls, antivirus, encryption, aka the front door of cyber defense. Yet, if our employees unknowingly leave a window open through a careless click or a weak password, attackers can still slip in. In fact, hackers know the easiest way in is often through humans rather than systems. That's why social engineering and phishing scams target employees have become so prevalent. Studies show that 74% of cybersecurity breaches are caused by human error. Think about that. Nearly 3 out of 4 breaches trace back to someone making a mistake, clicking a malicious link, reusing a weak password, or misconfiguring a setting. So this session has a somewhat proactive title, Calling Your Employees the Biggest Cyber Risk. I want to clarify, this isn't about blaming our teams. It's about awareness and culture. Most security incidents aren't caused by malicious insiders. They're caused by well-intentioned people who slip up because they don't know any better. The flip side, and the hopeful message for today, is that with the right approach, these same people can become your best defense, your human firewall. As one expert put it, you can have all the technical security in the world, but if the human firewall is weak, your organization is still at risk. Our goal is to strengthen that human firewall together. On this, just to give you a quick overview of what we'll cover today, we're going to talk a little bit about understanding the human risk, why employees are so often cited as the weakest link in cybersecurity, with some eye-opening statistics to quantify the risk. Spoiler, it's significant. Social engineering and phishing, how attackers are exploiting human psychology through scams like phishing emails, impersonation, other social engineering tactics. We'll dissect common tricks and a real-world story of an employee being duped to illustrate how easily it can happen. We'll look at other employee-related threats beyond phishing. We'll look at risky behaviors using personal devices, weak passwords, unsecured Wi-Fi, shadow IT, and more that can open the door to breaches. Each of those everyday actions can have serious consequences if not managed. We'll talk about building a strong security culture, the crux of turning risk into defense. We'll discuss how to educate and empower employees, effective training, clear policies, continuous awareness, and even positive reinforcement so they become a vigilant first line of defense rather than a liability. We'll talk about tools and solutions. We'll highlight some tools like phishing, testing, and best practices that organizations can use to reinforce training, simulate attacks safely, and monitor compliance. The tools can help transform employees from being the biggest risk to being security assets. We'll spend some time talking about roles and responsibilities. Importantly, we'll map out what leaders in different functions can do. Cybersecurity is not just the IT department's job, it's a company-wide responsibility. So whether you oversee technology, people, finances, or operations, you have a part to play in fostering a secure environment. We'll give some tailored insights onto each. And then Q&A. I'll reserve some time at the end to answer as many questions as we have. As we go along, please jot down anything you'd like to ask. Also, feel free to post in the chat and we can either respond to it in real time or wait until the end. By the end of this webinar, you should have a clearer picture of why the human element is both the biggest risk and how it can become the best defense. You'll also walk away with a game plan, actionable steps, and start strengthening your organization's cybersecurity culture, hopefully right away. So why do we say that employees are the biggest cyber risk? Consider this. Over 2/3 of organizations surveyed in 2024 believed that their own employees were putting the company at risk. And it's not hard to see why. Technology has advanced, defenses have hardened, but attackers have shifted to what they call soft targets. You and me, the people. Let's talk about numbers and scenarios to make it real. I already mentioned that roughly 74% of breaches trace back to human error. To break it down further, a LinkedIn study noted 80% of employees use personal devices for work purposes, often without robust security. 40% admit to downloading sensitive company data onto those personal devices, and 65 employees say they only follow security policies sometimes or even never. Ouch. On top of that, nearly half of employees reuse passwords across different tools and programs. Excuse me, just one sec. Sorry about that. At least same passwords for both their work and their personal accounts. These statistics are alarming for IT leaders and security professionals, but they should also catch the attention of HR, finance, and our ops leaders because they highlight behavior and process issues, not just tech issues. Think of your own organization. Have you ever emailed a file to your personal account to work on it from home? Or reused a simple password because it was easy to remember? Or clicked remind me later for a software update? We've all been there. The point is human convenience and habits can inadvertently undermine security. Hackers are well aware of this and they actively exploit it. Why spend days trying to hack through a firewall if you can phish an employee into handing over their login? As the saying goes, hackers don't break in, they log in. They trick someone into opening up that door for them. What's crucial to note here, and I want everyone, especially managers and executives, to remember, is that this isn't about employees being malicious in almost every case. The vast majority of breaches from the inside are due to lack of awareness or oversight, not necessarily bad intent. People generally want to do the right thing, but they might not know the to-dos and don'ts of security. In fact, lack of awareness is one of the biggest reasons employees become a security risk. If staff aren't fully aware of what they should or shouldn't do and why, say connecting a work laptop to the public Wi-Fi at a cafe or plugging in a random USB into their computer, it's easy for them to make risky choices without realizing it. So to sum up the problem, employees can often inadvertently create windows of opportunity for cyber threats. They click, share, install, or neglect updates in ways that cyber criminals can leverage. This human element is the common thread in social engineering attacks, insider errors, and policy bypasses. Understanding this is the first step. Next, we'll explore the most prevalent form of human-targeted attack, social engineering, especially phishing, because that's where attackers hit organizations the hardest. So what is social engineering? If there's one term you have to remember from today, it is make social engineering. Social engineering is essentially con artistry for the digital age. Attackers manipulating people's trust and emotions to get what they want across information, access, or money. The most common form of social engineering is phishing. You've probably heard the term, and many of you have seen phishing emails. Some of you have perhaps clicked on one in the past. Don't worry, you're not alone. Phishing typically involves fraudulent emails that appear legitimate, designed to trick employees into divulging credentials, financial information, or clicking on a malicious link. Now, why do we focus on phishing? Because an astonishing 71% of all targeted cyber attacks start with a phishing email. It remains by far the number one entry point. Cyber criminals cast a wide net with phishing, or sometimes a very targeted spear phishing hook. And it all takes is one bite. One person clicking on a dodgy link or opening up a booby-trapped attachment to potentially compromise an entire company. What do these phishing emails look like? Often they masquerade as something routine. A notice from your bank, a package delivery update, a file share from a colleague, or a message from IT support asking you to verify your password. The best ones are indistinguishable from real emails. at first glance. However, there are some usual telltale signs that you can look for. For example, if the email doesn't address you by name, e.g., it starts with, let's say, like dear customer instead of your particular name, that could be a red flag. Typos and strange grammar can be a giveaway, although we're seeing fewer and fewer of those as criminals are using AI to improve their message. Or the sender's address might be off, perhaps one letter different from the real company's email, like at Microsoft with a zero instead of an O. And of course, an unexpected email urging urgent action. Please click this link immediately to avoid your account being closed should raise suspicion. Finally, hover over the link before you click. Verify the sender and be wary of generic greetings, and never rush to click links or download attachments from unsolicited email. When in doubt, pick up the phone and call the supposed sender using an official number, not the one in the email. Attackers are crafty. They often impersonate well-known companies or even people that you trust. This brings me to a quick true story with some names changed that illustrates how even a savvy employee can be fooled by a well-crafted scam. Can you spot the fish? Generic greeting, unexpected attachments, suspicious links, etc. Now, phishing and impersonation are glaring examples, but let's not forget they're just one facet of employee-related risk. In the next section, we'll explore other everyday behaviors and scenarios where employees might inadvertently invite trouble and how we can advise against those. So let me share a real scenario that happened to a company. And it's the kind of story rather, that keeps executives up at night. A manager, we'll call him Sam, was arranging a big corporate event and emailing back and forth with a hotel to book a block of rooms. Pretty routine. In the email thread, out of nowhere, another person jumped in, claiming to be from the hotel's accounts department. Let's name her Haley. Haley, the supposed accounts manager, sent a legitimate-looking invoice to Sam asking for a deposit payment to secure the reservation. The invoice looked real, the email looked proper, and Sam was busy. He figured, I better get this paid so we don't lose our rooms. He forwarded the invoice to the finance team, who promptly paid the amount because it came from an employee. A few days later, the actual hotel emailed Sam asking what they can do, when they can expect their payment. Sam was puzzled. We paid you last week. He checks the email thread and finds two invoices attached from the hotel, one from the real hotel and one from the fraudulent Haley. They're identical except the bank account details. You can guess what happened. The company had paid the wrong account and AKA had paid the hacker. Somewhere along the way, the attacker had inserted themselves into the conversation, either by hacking the hotel's email or by spoofing it, and preyed upon a busy employee who didn't verify the payment details. The hacker walked away with a nice chunk of money, probably sipping a drink on a beach after their con, and the company was left with the headache of the financial loss. This is the kind of attack often called business email compromise or an impersonation scam. It's the form of social engineering where the stakes are high, in this case, direct financial theft. And it's more common than you might think. Criminals might impersonate a vendor in the cases that we just talked about, or pretend to be the CEO emailing a memo or a supplier requesting an urgent payment. They count on employees not knowing any better or being too busy to spot the trick. No fancy malware needed, just good fakery and timing. The lesson here for all departments: always verify unusual requests. If finance receives new bank details by email, they should double check through another channel. If an employee gets a weird request from the CEO at 6 p.m. on a Friday to transfer funds, question it. For IT and security teams, impersonation tools that flag external and unexpected senders can help. For instance, some email security solutions will warn users if the email is coming from outside the organization or if someone on the thread is a newcomer to the thread. But beyond tools, it comes down to training our people. Sam's company learned the hard way that user awareness can literally save a lot of money, and lack of it can cost dearly. While phishing might be the poster child of social engineering, employee-related risk extends to many everyday actions. Let's go through a few common ones that leaders across IT, HR, finance, and operations should be aware of. First, weak or reused passwords. Despite years of guidance, many people still use weak passwords or reuse the same password everywhere. It only takes one breach of a third-party site to expose those credentials, and if employees' weak password is the same as their breached personal password, bingo. An attacker now has the keys to your network. Earlier, we noted that nearly 50% of employees reuse passwords across work and personal accounts, and over a third use the same passwords for everything. This is why password hygiene, using strong, unique passwords for each and every login, is critical. A single weak password can be an open door. Also, password sharing or writing them down on sticky notes under the keyboard, still problems that we encounter, can lead to even more breaches. IT leaders, this is your arena. Pushing a password manager tool and multi-factor authentication is one of the best moves to mitigate this risk. A policy like use a password manager to generate and store unique passwords should be non-negotiable. It takes the burden off of employees to remember 20 complex passwords, and it greatly reduces the chance of reuse of a password, which therefore reduces your cyber risk. The next is unsecure networks and remote work. With remote and hybrid work now so common, employees might log in from a coffee shop Wi-Fi, an airport lounge, or a home network. Those networks might be secure or they might be unsecure. Using unsecured Wi-Fi, especially unsecured public Wi-Fi, can allow attackers to eavesdrop on communications. If an employee checks their email or logs into a work system on a free Wi-Fi without a VPN, an eavesdropper could potentially steal their credentials or their data. There's also the risk of malware distribution. Unprotected devices on the same network can get infected from each other. Symantec observed an 8,500% increase in coin mining malware when unsecured networks were involved, meaning attackers exploiting open networks to spread malware to other people's computers to use their computer to mine crypto on their behalf. For operations, this risk is worth noting. Imagining a traveling employee inadvertently downloading malware that later spreads when they reconnect to the office network. The solution? Educate employees to avoid using public Wi-Fi or use a VPN, virtual private network, when remote, and for IT, provide easy-to-use VPN services. Also consider having a separate secure network for critical systems, especially for IoT devices, so that one compromised device doesn't take everything else down. And then the next is BYOD networks. Many employees use personal phones, tablets, laptops, watches, especially if the company has a BYOD policy or smaller firms without spare hardware. The downside is personal devices might lack the strong security configurations of company-issued devices. Employees might not update their operating systems promptly. They might have downloaded apps that carry malware. Also, people tend to use personal devices for personal things, of course, so the mix of work data and personal apps increases risk. Shadow IT is when employees use unauthorized apps or cloud services to get the job done. It's another challenge. For instance, using a personal Dropbox or Google Drive to quickly share a large file because email's too slow might seem harmless, but it could violate data security policies and put sensitive information into an unknown territory. Leaders in all departments should be asking, do we know what apps our people are using to do their jobs? Often, they find creative but not necessarily secure workarounds if official tools are cumbersome or inadequate. From a policy standpoint, it's important to have a clear stance on BYOD and external apps. If employees are allowed to use personal devices, there should be rules and maybe technical controls, for example, mobile device management software to enforce passcodes, remote wipe capability, and to prevent downloading company files onto unapproved tools or apps. And as the Babel blog noted, if employees can access the crown jewels, in other words, data on personal devices, you need data loss prevention measures to control what can be downloaded or shared. HR and IT can partner on this, HR to communicate the policy and get buy-in, and IT to implement tech solutions. The next is unsafe data handling. This one especially is relevant to roles like finance and anyone handling sensitive customer or employee data. Sometimes breaches happen because someone put data where it shouldn't be. For example, an employee copies sensitive files to a USB drive to work from home and then loses that USB drive. It happened. Famously, a Heathrow Airport employee lost a USB drive containing sensitive data. The airport was fined £120,000 for that data breach. Even though that particular lost drive wasn't exploited by bad guys, it easily could have been, with confidential info potentially leaking. The lesson: portable storage and printouts of sensitive data are big risks. Strong policy and maybe even technical blocks can help prevent people from storing personal data on unencrypted external drives. Encourage the use of secure company cloud storage instead, and remind everyone that even sending something as mundane as an email to yourself or leaving a stack of papers on a train could end up being a breach if those papers happen to have confidential data. GDPR and privacy regulations exist exactly to push organizations to handle data carefully, and regulations will hold you accountable if a simple mistake leads to exposure. So, training your staff on what personal or client data they can access, how to do it securely, how to store it, and how to properly dispose of it is key. For example, finance teams should never download entire customer databases to a laptop, and HR should securely shred physical documents with PII. It sounds like common sense, but it needs to be spelled out and reinforced as well as audited. And then finally, neglecting updates and installing unvetted software. Finally, two quick but important tech habits. Failing to install software updates and patches and installing sketchy software. Both are often done by busy employees who click later on updates who might install a free tool from the internet without IT's approval. Not updating software is essentially leaving known holes open for attackers. Many attackers exploit vulnerabilities that already have patches available, and installing unofficial apps or browser extensions can introduce malware. There's countless apps that hide malware behind a useful looking facade. IT departments can mitigate this by managing updates centrally and whitelisting approved software. But employees also need to understand those update notifications aren't just for new features. They often do include security fixes. Skipping them repeatedly is like ignoring a recall notice on a car's failing brakes. Encourage a mindset that keeps software update as part of the job, not an annoyance. That was a lot of risk. The picture I painted might seem a little scary. It is a bit doom and gloom to realize just how many ways things can go wrong. But here's the reality. While human error is the biggest cybersecurity risk, it's a problem we can control. We can do something about it. And that's where the rest of our presentation heads. Solutions and best practices to reduce those risks. The answer lies in creating a strong security culture and leveraging tools that support our people. We've examined the biggest cybersecurity risk aspect. So now let's pivot to the promise in our title and our best defense. How can employees become our strongest cybersecurity asset? The key is to build what we call a human firewall. Just as technological firewall monitors and filters out threats, a human firewall is an organization's workforce collectively acting as a barrier to attacks. When every employee is vigilant, educated, and engaged in protecting the company, they can catch threats that technology might miss. First and foremost, cybersecurity must be seen as everyone's responsibility, not just the IT departments. This message has to come from the top. If the leadership across all department champions security, employees will understand it's part of the organization's culture, not just an IT checklist. For example, a CEO or a board emphasizing security in communications, or a finance director insisting on verification of payments, or an HR manager integrating security training into onboarding. These actions set the tone that security is integral to everyone's role. In contrast, if employees sense that only IT cares about security, they might ignore it as not my department. Now, practically, what we can do to turn employees into the strong first line defense. It boils down to three things: educate, empower, encourage. I'll break these down on the next slides. Building a security awareness culture through training, educate, setting up policies and systems enable people to do the right thing, empower, and reinforcing that with good behavior, encourage. But before we move on, let me underscore a hopeful statistic. Studies show that when companies invest in comprehensive security awareness programs, the incidence of successful phishing and related breaches plummets. One platform's data indicated that trained employees report phishing attempts more often, fall for them far less. In other words, when you know better, you do better. It sounds simple, but it's true. Our goal is to make every employee know what to do and not do when faced with a potential cyber threat, and to feel personally invested in keeping the company safe. Also consider the upside down perspective. Employees are on the front lines. They often see suspicious things first, like a weird email, a system acting oddly. If they're engaged, they can be the ones to raise the alarm early. That quick report to IT about a phishing email could thwart a breach, or an employee questioning, hey, I got a request for this data, is it legitimate, could stop a data leak. In effect, each person becomes a sensor and a defender. One more thought on mindset. We want to shift from a culture of blame to a culture of learning. If someone makes a mistake, maybe they clicked on a phishing link, punishments and shame are not the answer. They often drive problems underground. Instead, treat it like a learning opportunity to improve the process or training. The enemy is the cyber criminal, not our colleague who slipped up despite trying their best. That attitude will encourage openness and continuous improvement. All right, let's get concrete. How do we implement, educate, and empower? Education is the foundation of any strong security culture. Security awareness training isn't about scaring people or dumping technical jargon on them. It's about making sure employees understand why certain security rules exist and how to spot dangers in their day-to-day work. Remember, lack of awareness is the top reason people make mistakes. So our top task is to eliminate the ignorance gap. Here are key principles for effective security education. HR leaders, you may need to spearhead some of this in partnership with IT. First, make training practical and relevant. Dry lectures or checkbox compliance modules won't change behavior. Training should use real-world examples and scenarios that empower employees that employees can relate to. For instance, demonstrate a phishing attempt using a fake email that looks like something they'd actually receive, then walk through the telltale signs of how you could have known it was fake. Share stories like the one of Sam and Haley to illustrate impact. People remember stories and examples more than policies on paper. If an employee can picture what would I do if, then you've engaged them. Next, cover the essentials and beyond. At minimum, your training should cover things like how to create and manage strong passwords and promote using password managers, the importance of enabling two-factor authentication on accounts, recognizing phishing and social engineering tactics, proper handling of sensitive data, and safe use of technology tools. The Babel article suggests including even newer topics like using of AI tools in a corporate environment, because employees might be pasting company info into an AI chatbot or tools without realizing the risk. Tailor the content to what threats seem to be most relevant to your business or organization. Next, interactive and engaging. Rather than just annual PowerPoint, use interactive method. Quizzes, games, or even friendly competitions can make learning about security much more fun. I've seen companies do phishing simulation tournaments where teams score points for spotting and reporting fake phishing emails. The point is to encourage active learning. We use Bullfish ID, for example, which provides video lessons and online quizzes via a portal, which we can then use to make training more engaging and even painless for users. Such platforms can track progress and ensure everyone understands the material. They need to be ongoing and not one time. Importantly, security training isn't a one and done orientation topic. Cyber threats evolve and memories fade, so make training a regular rhythm, whether it's a brief quarterly refresher, monthly phishing drill, or at least an annual comprehensive update. LinkedIn's research emphasizes providing ongoing training and regular updates on emerging threats. When a new phishing scam is making the round, say a COVID-19 vaccine scam or an IRS refund scam, shoot out an alert to employees. Be on the lookout for X. Keep security in the conversation year-round. And then measure and adapt. IT folks, ensure you measure the effectiveness. Phishing simulation click rates, survey employees on confidence and security topics, etc. Use that data to see where more education is needed. If 30% of employees clicked on a simulated link about free gift cards, that tells you maybe reinforce lessons on suspicious offers. Also, update training content as new types of threats emerge. For example, if deep fake phone call scams or social media phishing are targeting your industry, add those into your training. Ultimately, an educated employee is a safer employee. When people understand the why behind security, not just the do's and don'ts, they're much more likely to follow through. As an example, instead of just saying don't reuse passwords, explain if you reuse passwords and one site gets breached, attackers will try that password on your work account. That's how companies get hacked, not through genius hacking, but through stolen passwords. When the light bulb goes on, behavior follows. Now, let's talk about empowerment, setting up an environment and policies so that doing the secure thing is easy, or at least clearly expected. Education works best when it's reinforced by clear, simple policies and systems that support secure behavior. We need to empower employees to do the right thing by removing ambiguity and providing the right tools. What does that mean? First, establish clear security policies that everyone can understand. Policies shouldn't read like legal documents. They should be concise and practical. For example, a few critical golden rules could be set in stone for all staff, such as use strong, unique passwords and a password manager for all work accounts. Only use company-approved devices and software for work tasks. Never forward company emails or files to personal accounts and never store sensitive data on personal devices. Report any lost device or suspected security incident immediately without any fear of blame. The idea is if you stopped an average employee in the hallway and asked, what are the top 3 to 5 security rules here? They should be able to answer that. Simplicity and clarity are key. Next, from a systems perspective, we have to provide tools that back up these policies. It's one thing to tell employees don't click on a suspicious link, it's another to assist them with technology. You could consider deploying email security filters that flag external emails and warn emails that might be a spoof. Some advanced email solutions, like the ones from Proofpoint that we use, will even pop up an alert if an email thread has a potential new imposter copied in. This kind of tool can give employees an extra layer of awareness in the moment when they're about to respond to a potentially malicious email. Likewise, implementing web filtering can block bad websites if an employee does click a link, acting as a safety net. For remote devices, ensure they have updated security software and perhaps the ability to sandbox suspicious email attachments. And then, of course, multi-factor authentication is another empowerment tool. Yes, it can be a tiny hassle to enter your code from your phone or from your app, but it massively increases account security. Enabling MFA on all critical systems mean that even if a password is stolen, the attacker likely can't get in without then hacking that second factor. It empowers employees by giving the accounts an added shield with minimal effort on their part. IT can make it standard and explain that it is protecting both the individual and the company. Another aspect of empowerment is ensuring employees know how to report issues that they have if they support something that if they see something that they think is concerning. Do they know where to forward suspicious emails? Is there a hotline or an easy way that they can report a problem, or even maybe to report that they think they might have messed up and clicked on something bad without any fear of retribution? This is where having some sort of an incident response plan that employees are aware of is useful, making reporting easy and then reward their vigilance. For HR managers, incorporate security expectations into job descriptions and performance reviews. For example, a manager's objectives could include ensuring their team completes all security trainings and drills. When everyone knows security is part of how we do business, it empowers them to take it more seriously. In summary, empowering employees means giving them the tools, rules, and supportive environment needed to be secure. Remove the guesswork. Am I allowed to use this app or not? They should know or have a path to ask, and equip them with tech that assists them from password managers to email alerts. Now let's discuss the third E, encourage, and how to reinforce, incentivize the right behavior so that good habits stick. People are inherently more likely to do something if they feel it's valued and recognized. So to truly build a lasting security culture, we need to encourage and reinforce good security behaviors. This involves regular reminders, positive feedback, and yes, even rewarding employees for being vigilant. Continuous reinforcement. As mentioned, threats evolve quickly. What was a new scam last month might be old news today, replaced by the next one. Keep security top of mind through regular communications. For example, a monthly security newsletter or a quick security tip of the week email can remind folks about best practices. If a big vulnerability or phishing campaign hits the news, send an advisory on how to stay safe. Some companies put up posters in the office, digital wallpaper for remote staff with catchy reminders like think before you click or secure your passphrase. The idea is to create an environment where security is not forgotten after the annual training. It's regularly nudged. Simulated phishing tests are a great reinforcement tool as well. If employees know that random phishing tests will come their way, it's a great reinforcement and a way that for them to stay on their toes. And when they pass, i.e. they spot the phish and don't click it, that's a moment of learning and confidence building. And if they fail, it's a private learning moment followed by a quick refresher, not a shaming incident. In terms of positive reinforcement, this is often overlooked. We tend to call out security issues when something goes wrong, but should we equally or more equally celebrate when things go right? Did an employee report a phishing email to IT? Fantastic, recognize them. Maybe give them a shout out in the next team meeting. Alex spotted a phishing attempt last week and alerted IT. Great job on being our human firewall. Such recognition not only makes that employee feel good, it signals to everyone else that this behavior is valued. Some organizations even are gamifying reporting. For example, employees earn points or badges for reporting potential threats, and those points can be redeemed for small rewards or bragging rights on a leaderboard. It might sound silly, but it taps into the human love for rewards and competition, directing it towards safer behavior. Next, having a no blame culture. Encouragement also means if someone does make a mistake, handle it constructively. Fear of punishment can cause employees to hide incidents. We want to do the opposite, immediate reporting. Let everyone know if you report a security mistake or a near miss, you will be thanked, not punished. For example, Julie accidentally clicked a bad link, but promptly informed IT, enabling a quick response. Thank you, Julie, for speaking up so quickly. This way, others know it's safe to raise their hand. Of course, repeat negligence might be handled via coaching, but initial mistakes should be treated as opportunities to improve systems and training, not to chastise. And then finally, celebrate improvements. If your company's phishing test click rate dropped from, say, 15 to 5% over 6 months of training, celebrate that. Share the metrics with everyone. We're getting stronger. Our collective vigilance improves security. It makes folks feel like they're part of a winning team effort. Ultimately, building pride in being secure can be a powerful motivator. Employees start viewing themselves as guardians of the company's trust and reputation, which is reality they are. One more angle. Involve employees in the process. Encourage suggestions. Maybe someone at the front lines is a great idea for a mnemonic to remember phishing signs, or more efficient processes that are also more secure. If an employee suggests a security improvement and it's implemented, highlight that. This inclusion drives home that security is our culture, not just top-down rules. To wrap this section up, encourage a security mindset through regular reinforcement, a pat on the back for jobs well done. Over time, these positive loops create a culture where secure behavior is second nature and even seen as point of pride. When that happens, your employees truly have become your best defense. They're actively on the lookout and they care about protecting the organization. Now, having discussed this and culture and practices, let's look at some specific tools and solutions that can aid you in this journey. Technology can solve the human factor, but it can generally assist in training and protecting the human layer. Let's discuss a few tools that can bolster your employees. So first, security awareness trainings, platforms like Bullfish, among others, are designed to transform employees from security risk into security assets. How? They provide an all-in-one solution for rolling out training content and phishing simulations. For example, Bullfish offers ready-made phishing email templates and engaging video lessons with quizzes delivered through a user-friendly portal. This means you can regularly test your employees with fake phishing emails and automatically enroll those who slip up, or everyone, into a brief training module. It's structured, trackable, and scalable, which is practically useful for larger organizations or those with limited IT staff to build custom trainings. The benefit of such tools is consistency. You ensure everyone gets the same quality of training and no one falls through the cracks. They often include dashboards so you can see your risk score trending down as your employees improve. Phishing simulation response. Even if you don't use a full platform, consider implementing a regular phishing simulation in-house. Some email security solutions have this built in, or there's other free toolkits out there. Email web security solutions. As we touched upon earlier, think about things like filtering your inbound email or your websites to block known risks and malicious attacks. Use EDR, or endpoint detection and response technology, to monitor bad behavior on computers and notify cybersecurity teams as soon as something happens. Access management tools. This includes things like single sign-on and other forms of identity management to reduce the number of passwords that people have to manage and make it easier to track risks. And then finally, dark web monitoring and credentials. One proactive tool, some services monitor dark web forums for your company's credentials being leaked. This can alert you if an employee's work email and password were exposed in, say, a third-party breach. If you know whose password is out in the wild, you can force a reset and coaching for that user. It's another way technology can assist the human side by informing you of risks stemming from human credential reuse or leaks. The bottom line is, while humans are the targets, we're not leaving them defenseless. We arm them with knowledge and with tools. Think of it like equipping your team. Training is the drill, but tools are the shield and sword. A combination of user-focused training platforms like Bullfish and technical controls gives a 1-2 punch. The training reduces the chance of mistakes, and the tech catches or mitigates mistakes that still happen. For those in leadership, consider investing in solutions. It's a lot cheaper than the cost of a breach. And many of these tools integrate well without disrupting workflow. In fact, they often run quietly until something actually does need attention. Cybersecurity is a team sport across the organization. So let's talk about how various departmental leaders can champion turning employees into their best defense. IT leaders and security teams, our job is to be the coaches of this game. IT is typically responsible for implementing tools and training that we discussed. Our role is to provide technical infrastructure, firewalls, filters, MFA, Bullfish, all kinds of other tools, and then to monitor for threats. But beyond that, the tech teams and the IT teams should be leading by example in policy compliance and collaboration with other departments to ensure security measures align with business processes. IT can also regularly brief other leaders on threat landscape, like here's the 5 top phishing attacks we're seeing, that keep everyone informed and vigilant. HR. You might not think of HR as part of cybersecurity, but you are crucial. HR is often the owner of training programs and culture initiatives. Partner with IT to integrate security awareness into onboarding of every new employee. Make training mandatory in the first week. HR can also schedule periodic refresher courses and ensure compliance, tracking who has completed training, for example. Moreover, HR has a pulse on the organization's culture. Use that insight to weave security into the company's values and communications. Finance. You might wonder, why me? I'm not technical, but think of it back to Sam's story. It was the finance team that ultimately executed a payment to a fraudster. Finance departments are the prime targets of social engineering, like fake invoices, CEO fraud, and vendor impersonation. As a finance leader, ensure financial controls are in place. For example, requiring a callback verification for any new or changed payment instructions, or having dual approval for large transfers. Operation leaders. Operations is about keeping the business running efficiently and safely. Today, ransomware or data breach could disrupt your supply chain, your service delivery, even physical operations. If it has happened, manufacturing lines halted due to malware infection from an employee's infected laptop, for example. Operations can support cybersecurity by ensuring that business processes are designed with security in mind. For example, if there's pressure to get a job done quickly, employees might be tempted to bypass security. Recognize those pressure points and work with IT and HR to alleviate them so that there is always a secure and efficient way to get the job done. In all these roles, lead by example. Executives and managers, if you follow the policies, no exceptions for the boss to use password 123 or click on an unadverted link or have a password that never expires, it sets a powerful example. If leaders take security seriously, employees will too. Conversely, if a leader skirts the rules, others will see permission to do the same. Ultimately, building a strong human defense requires cross-functional effort. IT provides expertise and tools, HR shapes culture and training, finance secures the money channels, operations integrates security truly into our daily workflows. When each part of the organization does its part, the risk plummets dramatically. It takes everyone to guard against the threats that target the whole company. Now, we're nearing the end of our presentation. For the last section, I'll wrap up the key takeaways and then issue a call to action where you can start today to start strengthening your human firewall. Then we'll open it up for Q&A. As we conclude the main presentation, let's recap the core insights and takeaways from our session. Your employees are your biggest cyber risk and your best defense. Employees are at the core of cybersecurity. Technology defenses are vital, but ultimately people's actions determine security, success, or failure. Human errors account for the majority of breaches, so we must address the human factor head on. However, this is a challenge we can rise to, because unlike the external threat landscape, the culture inside our company is something that we can shape. Common threats and vulnerabilities. We discuss how social engineering, especially phishing, is the tip of the spear in attacking organizations, with 71% of targeted attacks starting that way. We saw how an impersonation scam can fool even diligent employees, and how everyday habits like weak passwords, unsafe Wi-Fi use, personal device use, etc., can open the windows of risk. Importantly, most of those are not born out of malice, but out of lack of awareness or inconvenient processes. Thus, our response should not be to scold, but to educate and improve our processes. Building the human firewall. By focusing on education, empowerment, and encouragement, we can transform our workplace into a robust line of defense. Regular engaging security awareness training and practical policies will ensure employees know what to do and why. Empowering them with clear rules and the right tools, password managers, VPNs, email alerts, makes it easier to do the right thing. And a culture of encouragement, reinforcing good security behavior and learning from mistakes will make security a positive part of our company's culture. Tools and solutions amplify our efforts. We have powerful allies in technology. Solutions like Bullfish or other structured ways to continuously train and test our employees turn them from vulnerabilities into assets. Email and web security tools act as guardians watching over our employees' shoulders to catch threats in real time. Together, human vigilance and smart tech greatly reduce the likelihood of successful attack. And leadership and shared responsibility. Cybersecurity is a shared responsibility across your organization. We need engagement from every department. IT secures the infrastructure and provides guidance. HR fosters security, culture, and training. Finance implements checks that prevent social engineering fraud, and operations ensures business processes integrate seamlessly. Tone at the top matters. Leadership must visibly support and participate in these efforts. When every leader is on board, every employee knows that security is part of their job too. To put it succinctly, the biggest cybersecurity risk in your company isn't technology, it's how people use it. But that's also where your greatest strength can lie. With informed, alert, and empowered people, you can create a human shield that complements your technical shields. The companies that succeed in today's threat environment are those that cultivate a strong security culture, where each employee feels responsible for and capable for protecting the organization. Before I move on to the final call of action, I want to leave you with this thought. Imagine your organization a year from now. You've implemented regular training and phishing drills. Your employees have gone from being unsure about that strange email to confidently spotting and reporting it. Your finance team stops a fraudulent wire transfer because they verified the request verbally. And your HR team proudly boasts 100% completion of security training in record time. Breaches may never be 100% eliminated, but the odds are now strongly in your favor. You've taken away the power from the attackers and put it in the hands of your people. That's the vision we're striving for, turning that risky window into a fortified firewall. So thank you for staying with me through this deep dive. Now, as we wrap up, I want to issue a strong call to action. Knowledge without action is useless, so here's how we can put today's insights into practice. Start with a quick win. Identify one immediate step you could take in the next week. Maybe it's scheduling a phishing simulation or reviewing your company's password policy, or even just sharing one statistic from today with your staff to spark awareness. One quick win builds momentum. Review and strengthen your training programs. If your organization doesn't have a formal security awareness program, now is time to build or buy one. Leverage platforms like Bullfish or others to make it efficient. If you do have a program, evaluate it against what we discussed. Is it regular, engaging, and up to date? Commitment to making improvements as you need to. Elevate your human risk posture. Consider conducting an internal survey or risk assessment focused on employee practices. How confident are your employees in spotting threats? Where do they feel unsure? This can guide your next steps. Also look at metrics like how many phishing emails were reported versus clicked last quarter, or how many devices are missing updates. Use the data to drive targeted actions where possible. Engage leadership in departments. Use your influence to brief other leaders on the concepts. Maybe send a summary of this webinar's key points to your C-suite or department heads. Propose forming cross-functional security champions teams. Representatives from IT, HR, finance, operations can meet periodically to coordinate on security initiatives. When leaders collectively prioritize security, change happens faster. And empower your people. On an individual level, encourage your colleagues and employees to take security personally. Perhaps challenge each team member to bring one security tip or suspicious phishing email to discuss at next staff meeting. Little engagements like this keep everyone alert and involved. Remind them reporting incidents or asking questions is always welcome. You want them to speak up. In fact, after the session, you might send out an email to all staff. We just learned XYZ in this webinar. Here are 3 things you could do right now to help improve our security. Make it actionable for them too. Finally, if you need external help, whether it's setting up a training, conducting a security audit, or deploying tools, don't hesitate to reach out to us or whoever your security professionals are. Sometimes an outsider perspective helps kickstart internal change. The resources provided, like articles referenced today, are also great for you to share with your teams or for individual reading and validation of these concepts. So here's the call to action. Invest in your human firewall. Starting today, commit to at least one initiative that will educate, test, or reinforce your employee security savvy. The ROI is huge, potentially preventing a costly breach, yes, but also building a culture of trust and vigilance that prevent your organization in countless ways. With that, I want to thank you all for your time and attention. We've covered a lot, and I went pretty quick, so I hope you found it valuable and applicable to your role. Your employees truly can be your strongest defense if all depends on how we lead and support them. So let's turn our biggest risk into our biggest defense together. Now, I'd love to open it up for Q&A. We've got just about 10 minutes left for questions, so please feel free to ask anything, whether it's clarifying a concept, asking for advice on a specific situation, or any concerns you have about implementing these ideas. No question is too basic or broad.
Hi, Delcy. This is Stephanie Lucier. Thank you for presenting today. This is really good info. I have a quick question. Do you have any recommended, I'll call them assets? Could be a podcast, could be an online subscription, something where, those of us that need to be in the know of cyber attacks, cyber breach, that we can find out this information rather quickly. I've tried to take a step back from like social media, just because it can be a time warp, things like that. So I'm really struggling on how to stay informed on a regular basis, a daily basis. So if you have any recommendations, I'd love to hear them.
It's a phenomenal question, and I don't immediately have an, a good answer, but it's one that I'm definitely going to get you an answer for. And what we'll do is we'll include that in the recap that we send out because you're 100% right. We rely on our vendors to feed us constant information, and they have news channels and email alerts. Like for example, right now, some of you may have heard in the news, there's a huge SharePoint attack going on. Fortunately, it only impacts people who use SharePoint on premise, and that's virtually none of our clients. But that's an attack that we have to be instantly aware of, instantly assessing the threat risk, and instantly deciding whether we need to take action on our clients' behalves. But to your point, that's kind of accessible to us. It's not necessarily accessible to the people in the organizations. So let me do some research and figure out what might be a good resource that we could share, and I'll make sure that we include it in the recap that goes out, whether it's a podcast or a website or a news feed or something like that that you could follow.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, great question. I appreciate it. Any other questions? Feel free to unmute or post in the chat.
All right. Well, I'll ask another one.
Sure.
Steph again. How would you suggest getting leadership engaged on this content? Like I hear you loud and clear, and it's not just for IT, it's HR, it's finance, and I've always believed no matter what the message is, it's got to come from the top. So do you have any tips on getting leadership engaged in this?
Yeah, I do. We've actually had a fair amount of experience with this. My recommendation, or at least what I have seen to be the most effective, is if you have a leadership team that you don't, eh, maybe your gut or your instinct is they're not putting a high enough importance on it. They're not taking it as seriously as you perceive they should be, and maybe that's also then trickling down, as we talked about in the presentation. One thing that we have found very effective is do set up a custom presentation for that leadership team. And in that custom presentation, really kind of customizing the presentation to their industry, specific incidents and threats that have happened, and how those threats occurred, and really trying to paint the picture for them that here's another business that looks a lot like yours. Here's an executive who wasn't doing this thing or did this thing, and here's what happened, and how a hacker used that to get into the business and the damage they caused. And in many, many cases, if necessary, I can even confidentially introduce two CEOs to talk to each other, a CEO of an organization that had a significant breach. We would never publicly disclose that information. We would never publicly share that. But oftentimes, the CEOs who've been in these attacks or whose companies have been attacked do want to help other businesses. And so they're often very willing to have a private conversation if we get to that point where somebody's still not quite getting it. I'm like, hey, let me have you talk to Bill. Bill's going to tell you about what happened to his company. And often that can really have like an eye-opening, enlightening impact. And then we take that and we build the momentum and say, okay, now that you're engaged, here's the three things we need you to do, and here's the things that we need everybody else in the organization to do. And then we start to kind of leverage that momentum. It's kind of like getting a flywheel going. It does start with that executive team, but once you've got them on board, then we just got to keep that momentum spinning.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Somebody asked, as far as password managers go, I hear a lot about people hear voices concerned if someone does hack onto their computer and they use password manager, the hacker would access all their passwords. This is a great question. Chris, thanks for raising it. There's a couple of things with password managers. One, you do a lot of people set up their password manager that it never has to have a password entered into it. It doesn't have any authentication required. And so to Chris's point, if that's the case and somebody gets on my computer, they now have access to all my passwords. That's not ideal. So a couple of best practices. One is to set up your password manager in such a way that every time the browser is reopened, you have to log into the password manager, that credential is not just going to be maintained. Most password managers have that feature that you can turn on or turn off, depending on how you look at it. And ideally, you want that password manager to be secured with some sort of multi-factor authentication. It could be an integrated Windows Hello, like a facial recognition or fingerprint or something else, or it could be a text message to your phone or an Authy app or something like that. But that's definitely the best practice, is to find some way to secure that beyond just having it automatically log in every time you open up Microsoft Edge or Chrome or whatever browser you're using. The other thing I will say, though, is it is relatively uncommon today that somebody literally hacks into a laptop or desktop. It's not unheard of. It can happen, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not something that we encounter with any frequency. So as long as that laptop has a secure password, meaning if the laptop is stolen, nobody's going to be able to log into it. And the hard drive is encrypted, meaning if I steal the laptop and I take the hard drive out, I can't just copy the information off the hard drive. Those two things really mitigate the risk that in order for somebody to do it, they'd have to hack into the laptop while it was logged in and not have the user notice that the mouse is suddenly moving around, clicking a bunch of things. So it is a relatively minimal risk, but it isn't zero. And so I personally do believe that password managers should also have a password on them, and that password should be required often, and it should have a multi-factor authentication enabled on it. But I will say that just by having a password manager that has all secure passwords and is limited to a device is a huge step forward compared to the alternative. And sometimes we have to take progress over perfection because we're just trying to move the ball down the field and make things a little bit better. The one thing I will say is using Chrome or Edge as your password manager is not a password manager. Letting Edge or Chrome store your passwords for you has been proven over and over and over again to be very, very easily hacked or stolen. So do not think of that as your password manager. A password manager is a third-party tool, a LastPass, a MyGlue, a password keeper, something that is an actual independent product that is vetted and reviewed and designed to securely store passwords. And obviously, you need to use a good one because if that company's hacked, they just stole all your passwords. So some of these companies have had some pretty significant breaches themselves, and that raises their own concerns. So vetting the right password manager matters. But something is better than nothing. And so it's, one of those things that I'd rather use something than not do anything at all. Any final questions before we move to wrap up? If not, I'll share with you guys just one more kind of story that you should be paying attention to. We had a client, I certainly won't say who got a request to do a wire transfer through an email to the CFO. It was coming from the CEO, supposedly. The CFO very correctly said, this is a bit unusual. Can I can I just call and verify this? He said, I'm not somewhere where I can take a call. My cell phone doesn't have service, but I can jump on a Zoom meeting if you want. Send me over a Zoom link. They got the Zoom link. They clicked on the Zoom link, and the CEO was impersonated using a deep fake. They had stolen some clip of him from the internet, built a little AI bot, had the AI bot do the Zoom meeting, and told the CFO, yeah, this is Delcy. You're fine. You can go ahead and wire the money. Like, thanks for checking. I really appreciate it. You're doing a great job. And they, of course, wired the money because at that point, who wouldn't? So you do want to be really, really, really hypersensitive to just anything that seems out of place, even if there are things that are done to kind of reinforce that. Calling somebody on their cell phone that you know to be their cell phone versus letting them send you a phone number, having them do anything that feels out of the ordinary. Trust your guts and instinct. If it feels even a little bit off, it probably is. And AI is going to make our lives miserable as it makes it harder and harder and harder to detect these things. So just continue to be vigilant and keep that in mind. With that, I thank you guys very much for tuning in today. Hopefully you got something out of today's presentation. And if you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And as I mentioned, we will send out a recap of this with some additional information and resources for you guys to follow on an ongoing basis. Just a very, very quick point. We do have our next webinar coming up. Which is going to be our August webinar, which is going to be thinking about how IT can impact the value of your company. We're going to be partnering with Van Group. Van Group is going to talk about how when a business is going through an acquisition or being acquired, how the acquirer is going to look at your IT and value it and how it's going to impact the transaction. It's going to be a really interesting webinar. I think Mike Van, who's going to be leading it, is going to do a great job. So I hope we see you for that. It's on Wednesday, August 27th at 10 a.m. And if the invite hasn't gone out, it'll go out very soon. Thank you guys again, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, Delcy.